You're watching the GST Centimeter Hour special broadcast. Sales of used cars have taken a beating in the month of July, soon after the rollout of the goods and services tax. But we are now starting to see a rebound of sorts since August. Before the rollout of the GST, used cars were taxed at 5%, but now the tax rate is 25% plus the cess. Many fear that high taxes could lead to a shift towards the unorganized sector, which anyway accounts for a majority of the used car industry. Joining me on the show is the CEO of Mahindra First Choice, Nagendra Pale. Mr. Pale, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. The latest Indian Blue Book survey clearly states that the GST regime has imposed a high burden on dealers across the country. What has been the impact for companies like yours, Mahindra First Choice, for instance, since the 1st of July?
The GST issue started cropping up in June, and that is still early. You know, it was implemented in July, and there's still we're sorting through questions around GST, both on the mechanism on what GST applies as well as the rates themselves. Obviously, the rates, the way they've been defined for the used cars, have been the same as the new car rates, and with the new cess, obviously. The rates are pretty high relative to the pre-GST VAT regime, and we've done a lot of work and analysis and represented to the government as well that the rates do need to be looked at, and they are looking at it. I think it's not a matter of intent, it's more a matter of not having paid attention to it. But even having said that, you know, in July and August we saw volumes drop about 20%. 20 to 25%, and I think to some extent beginning of July it was more just complete lack of clarity, but even since then the volumes have dropped a little. But what we are finding in August, what we found in August is the volumes picked up a little bit, and again we find the overall growth trajectory back. Long term we continue to remain extremely bullish because I think the fundamental demand is very high. It's more a matter of figuring out sort of some of these things, how to service the demand in an appropriate way, and I think hopefully the government also will look at it and address the rates as we go forward.
So you hope that the government will address the rates and that this anomaly, as you point out, will be corrected, because used car rates and new car rates now are on par. But have you seen any evidence of more transactions shifting from the organized to the unorganized sector, which is anyway a bulk of where the business is at?
Yeah, that is the threat, and again I think we have to wait and see. The organized sector, by the way, is still only about 15%. You know, it's largely still unorganized. Now the growth rate of the organized sector is very high. You know, the organized sector was growing at almost 25%, and then, you know, you would expect that slowdown to occur a little bit. But in our own business, what we find is that the growth rate is back again, you know, quite high. But overall industry, you know, as we look at the GST structure, naturally you're right, you'll find some pressure to move to the unorganized sector to save on taxes. But remember, these taxes are paid only on the margin. It's not on the sale price of the vehicle. So what my experience has been working in this industry for a while and other parts of the world is that the pricing also begins to adjust to the new tax structure, both on the sell side as well as the buy side. So what you find is that over the long term it will sort itself out, but at the same time there has to be some parity in the GST rates relative to the pre-GST VAT rates. I think that will get sorted out, but overall we seem bullish on the organized sector because it addresses a fundamental consumer need that is missing today.
Okay, so that's what you're betting on. You're hopeful that the rates will in fact be reviewed. Mr. Pale, appreciate you joining us. MS Money of Deloitte also here with us. Money, do you think that there is a case for a review of the rates as far as the used car business is concerned, and do you believe the GST Council will in fact take that up?
I think there's a very good case to take up, not only for the used car business but also for the leasing business, because I think fundamentally what seems to have not been addressed is the fact that when someone pays a 43% on his sale, he's also entitled to take a credit on his purchase. Now in this case, at the point of time when these cars were purchased, the existing tax provisions did not permit either a credit of the excise or the credit of the VAT also in some cases. So this is one of the few businesses where we suddenly have an anomaly that has crept in, where the sale is taxed at a much higher rate, and on the original purchase there is hardly any credit which is available, if at all any. So to my mind, the transitional provisions should have addressed this this issue. I also understand this has been put up a few times before the GST Council, but they have not come around to addressing this.
Right.
So the way I look at it, it's just a question of time before this gets addressed.
Okay, so maybe in the next meeting of the GST Council in October, this could be on the agenda. But as Mani was pointing out, let's address the issue of car leasing. Here, taxes have risen after the GST rollout, but not just that. Individual EMIs for cars bought on a lease have also shot up. And this has forced Mohammad Anzi to start an online petition on change.org. He joins us now live from Bengaluru. Also joining us from Delhi is Pushpinder Jindal, also impacted by this. Mohammad and Pushpinder, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Let me start by asking you, Mohammad, you started that online petition on change.org. What is your contention?
Shireen, it's very clear for us. There is a clear case of double taxation for us, and our EMIs have gone up by 30%, which is completely not affordable for the salaried class. We tried different means of reaching out to the government. We tried to use the social media to support us in terms of putting across to the secretaries, everyone, saying that this is a denial of natural justice. We have already paid the excise duty while buying the car, but again taxing us on the lease rental at a 43 to 50% rate. It's completely not fitting the bill.
You know, beyond this petition, let me come to you, Pushpinder. Are you also exploring legal possibilities? Because I was given to understand that that in fact may be a consideration.
Well, I would say we are quite hopeful from the government. In fact, we are the people who pay the taxes on time, TDS, and we are quite hopeful that the change which we have voted for in the government is really going to look forward to us and really, you know, support us. And people are paying, you know, in the residual value of the car. For a 10 lakh rupee car, if you depreciate by 2 lakh rupees, on 8 lakh rupees, about 4 lakh rupees is the GST which is being asked. So that becomes effectively 11.5 lakh rupees, which is more than an old car, a new car, right? So this is absolutely unjustifiable, and there is double taxation, as we've already seen that.
Okay, Mohammad, how many people have already signed up on your petition so far?
It's close to 5,400 people have signed up because it primarily, Shireen, one of the topics is that it affects only the existing leases. It doesn't affect the new leases.
Yeah.
The new leases, they get the input credit, input credit, and that's being passed on to the end user. But existing leases like me and like 10,000 of many people out there, they don't have any voice.
So what is the additional outgo for you, Mohammad, for instance?
30% on hike on the EMIs.
30% hike on the EMI that you were paying. Okay.
Yeah.
Mani, yes. You've just heard what both Mohammad as well as Pushpinder have to say. You know, what is the expectation? Because I know that I've had a conversation with the Revenue Secretary in the past raising this issue, and there wasn't a very sympathetic ear to this problem.
I would say possibly one reason why this has not been addressed till now is this is being possibly perceived as an issue which affects some of the large corporates only. And what I'm very happy to hear is the fact that this is now being addressed from an end user perspective. Because from an end user, whether it is a 20% hike or 30% hike, the larger issue, which I think at some point of time has to be taken up through the courts if it's not addressed, we cannot have a hike in the output tax payable without a corresponding set off available in the input tax. That violates all the principles that we have learnt in, you know, taxation. And all that is being suggested therefore are two options. A, in respect of existing car leases which are already in existence, can we please have a lower rate? We can continue to have the new rate and 43 and 45 on new car leases, which people will manage. But on existing leases, there are just two choices available before us. A, we can have a lower rate, let's say a composition rate, which is without input tax credit. So it can be a 5, it can be a 10, it can be a 15. Or in respect of existing cars, which is a more difficult option for the government, can we please allow the input tax credits? Now the input tax credit option may be a little difficult for the government because people will need to struggle with documentation. People may not have the excise invoices, they may not have the original VAT invoices. So possibly one issue that can be explored is people are willing to pay a small hike in their EMI. So it can go up from 5% to say 10% or 12%, but it can't go up from 5% to 43%. You know, that doesn't, you know, work.
Okay, a quick word from Mohammad from what you just heard Mani say on what could be the options the government could take forward.
I'm still hopeful that there is an input credit available for us in whichever format it's being given. And if that's not the option, then reduction of the GST rates for the existing leases could be another option that we are looking at.
Well, the next meeting of the GST Council, we understand, is going to be sometime towards the end of October. We've brought to the table some of the key sectors and the issues that they're facing, teething trouble with the goods and services tax regime, perhaps at least as far as the pain that the exporters are being faced with. Maybe that will be addressed in that meeting that the Revenue Secretary holds with exporters tomorrow, and maybe the issues that Mohammed and Pushpendra have brought up, as well as Mahendra First Choice, who also joined us on the show to deal with car leasing, as well as the used car business, will be taken up separately by the GST Council when it meets next. Appreciate you joining us here, gentlemen, on the show on the GST Centimeter, for giving us a reality check. With that, it's time for us to wrap up the show. Thanks very much for watching. Don't go anywhere. The news continues.